Essence House After Show.
Woo!
Welcome to the Essence House After Show. I'm your host, Jess, and tonight joining me are the creators of the Essence House, Eric
Woo!
and Chuck.
Woohoo!
So we're finally on episode 4 of Essence House.
Finally.
Yeah.
So a lot has happened.
To think, like 4 episodes ago, Tim was just a guy driving up to a plaza.
So in this episode, Tim and Tristan are back in time.
Yep.
So
Pretty
can
much
you guys
my
give
favorite.
us a little summary?
It's like my favorite time era. Right there in the 90s, mid 90s.
I was like, well, so why did you pick that era, Eric? And Eric's like, because it's my favorite. So he jumped in front of my question.
I mean, it made sense for the tracking back to the characters, like when the event happened that they're going back in time to deal with. I mean, the characters are only so old, so could only have them go back so far.
Well, and for those who don't know, why don't you tell them a little bit about that song that's playing at the beginning of the episode?
Yeah, so the episode actually starts with a song from Blister, who is the band from my comic book series, Blister. Remember the name of the song? It's one of the 3 songs from their Bad Hand EP. Yeah, and so like one of my favorite things, particularly in that year, and that whole like few years in that time period, for me was to go to the record store, and so I think I like to write what I know, and so starting them out in a record store was something that early on I talked to Chuck about. When we go back in time, I want to start in a record store. I always liked how you go back to a record store at that time, and the snobby guy behind the counter would be playing some bands you never heard of, and he'd treat you like an idiot for not knowing who the band was. We didn't go that far in the episode, but the guy definitely was playing Blister, who's a small band from south of Chicago. And so that was.
It's funny because in this episode, you get to hear Eric's take on the 90s, and in the next one, you get to hear what I was most excited about in the 90s. So we both got to play to our strengths. You'll see, it's a lot of fun.
No, it's a lot of fun because when you're first entering into the world of Essence House, you don't realize you're going to get hit with the 90s. So there's like all this awesomeness that's coming. It's like these little like nostalgia bombs that pop out at you, and you're like, oh shit, I remember that.
Yeah, most of the time when there's somebody time traveling in a movie, they're going back like 100 years or like something crazy like that. I mean, Back to the Future was basically the same kind of distance and time jump. I think we talked about that last time we talked, but
yeah. Unless you're talking about the 3rd movie.
Ooh,
yeah, that's true. That one went back quite a bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of time travel to the 90s, though. So that's
no,
fun.
I love it. Oh, so what's your?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, it's just funny because traveling back to the 90s, you're like, it wouldn't affect things that much, but it really does. Like, they're really like. I mean, there's one point where we get to play with like photo booths and stuff, or phone booths, and it's like, dude, there's still phone booths. Like, when was the last time you saw one?
Yeah, so they start out in the record store, and then Tim is having some problems. He's on the ground, and they get thrown out.
Tim has a rough go this episode.
Yeah, he's not doing well. Yeah, so they they get thrown out. There's a nice little like I think it's fun to throw in little small things like so they make a reference to Jerry Garcia's last show.
Yes,
in New
yes,
York.
that was a lot of fun. Like, wouldn't you want to know?
Yeah. And then and Tim kind of freaks out on him, like, hey, we're gonna change history, butterfly effect stuff, and Tristan doesn't care about that at all.
At all, right? Against time.
I understood Tristan's argument there. I liked it. He was basically like, we're already back here to do something huge. All I'm trying to do is offer this guy one chance to see the band he wants to see one last time.
Yeah,
Like,
we're literally here to stop a plane crash.
Right?
we're saving lives that otherwise would not exist in our time period, but you're worried that some dude is going to watch their favorite band one last time.
Yeah. So that was a fun little nod. And then like I did a whole bunch of research on that winter in New York. Like there was like a crazy flu outbreak, and it was insanely cold that winter, which back then, I don't know, feels like it was insanely cold a lot during the winter, but well, maybe not. There was a lot of snow back then. But yeah.
I have to say, writing these 2 episodes, because you wrote 4 and I basically wrote 5, I think the toughest part of them is that we actually had to research. Like we wanted to really play into those areas. We have a good buddy, Gene Hoyle, who was a New Yorker in the 90s, and so we got in touch with him and we were like, what kind of stuff was going on? What's happening? So he was a big help, and everyone's, because I've been to New York, but I was in New York like once for 3 days in 99 or 98. So it was just like, yeah, so I need to know what's up. So he was helpful. But there was a lot of research.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, even when they get to that newspaper stand and they read a headline, like I went and found out what the New York Times headline was that day, and it had to do with like a tsunami or whatever, and a bunch of people died, and so then it made the point then that things like that, like this, it sucks that like these mass casualties happen and it's just lost to time. Like, but it was a cool moment.
Yeah,
I think.
No, I like it, and I like the fact that you guys did a lot of research to, make it feel more authentic. And, because you can't show anything, this is all like through hearing, so you have to really like describe these things so people can see it in their mind's eye and really bring them back to the 90s. So earlier we talked about that this is a lot goes on with Tim during this episode. He's quite affected by the time travel, but before that, Wendy brings up, she says, I think an invisible man pushed the girl on the bike, giving the Edmonds a warning. Remember when the girl falls on the bike, and what happens to there with Tim?
I think what I love about this is now that like once you open up one bat crazy door, all of them kind of open up. You know what I mean? So people are like, well, if there's time travel, there has to be invisible men, and like like we're gonna have all this other stuff. And I'm not saying necessarily that we're not doing that, but it's just funny that once you open up the metaphysical on any level, all of this stuff kind of pops open, and at that point theories go rampant, because now they're like, okay, well, I know that the metaphysics of this world is different, so I get to, maybe there's this, maybe there's that, maybe there's reverse vampires. I don't know, like,
is there reverse vampires in this?
I can confirm that. No.
There are a ton.
No, but you're right. It's kind of like everything's possible now. Which one did we?
Okay, so Wendy says, things seem to take place more in 1994? I guess she means, right? Does things seem to take more place in 1994 because they're not 100% there? Like people can see them, but maybe the time jump is affecting their physical state and reality.
takes more effort to do things.
Yeah, Wendy was basically saying it takes more efforts to do things because they're in a different time period. That's a really interesting theory. Obviously, we can't, kind of go there until the story goes there, but that's a really cool thought. That the further away you are from your time period, the tougher it is for you to do stuff.
Well, when it comes to like the stuff that's going on around them has happened, and so the stuff that they're trying to do in effect hasn't happened. Like, so it's almost like I kind of feel like it's kind of like pushing against a wave, like you're going against the grain. So like when he's going to open the bar door, I just don't see him being able to just grab it and open it because that didn't happen. So like to actually affect that takes a lot more effort.
So
Plus, he's not doing great to begin with. He's falling up against walls, and so.
So do we want to talk a little
That
bit?
hangover was wrong.
Yeah.
A couple exited the bar, yet Tim entered and there wasn't anyone inside. Have any comments on this?
Well, didn't we say there were people like playing a poker game at the far end or whatever?
In that back room.
In a different room. Yeah.
That's the room that he goes to investigate. But yeah, there's nothing inside the bar.
Yeah. Yep. That happened.
That happened. All right.
Well, I mean, really, what day? It's shortly. It's January. It's a bar. It looks like it's during daytime. A lot of bars aren't really that crowded during the day if they have anyone at all.
Prior to that, it's definitely as Tim's approaching the bar, he's hearing laughter and noise inside. So there's definitely more to it.
Aha! Wait a second. It seemed as if Chuck was acting as if there was nothing there, yet Eric acknowledged it. Is this correct?
That's what it looks like.
That's what it
What the
seems.
heck, guys? Who do I believe? It's like you're the two doorknobs, right? Like, which one do I believe?
You can call us the two doorknobs.
Yeah, she was
That's
calling
like high school all over again.
Another red pill in the
Okay, so basically, let's see. Then Wendy goes on, so maybe time travel isn't as simple as going from one time period to another. Or maybe there's something about the bar, like it's existing in more than one time simultaneously, kind of like the Essence House.
I mean, I guess any old building would exist in, whatever times they've been in. I won't say the bar.
Big.
I won't say the bar is like magical in any way that the Essence House is. I don't.
Is the bar a portal in time?
I'm gonna go with no on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. Yeah, if it was, they might have gone somewhere.
I like to tease now and then, but I'll just go with no.
Okay. So let me see. I know we have.
So I'm surprised that you didn't bring up the new character.
We're not there yet. We're not at the hospital yet.
Oh, Chuck.
I know, but if it were me, I'd be like if there was a Chuck character, even if he showed up and they're like, by the way, there's Chuck, and like the last person, I would have jumped. I would have been like, so it begins with screw that, I'm in this, yeah, like.
I was waiting for the moment to be like, and then guess what?
All right, move on.
Fine,
I threw it out there.
Can we just jump onto that?
You jump on whatever you want.
Sure.
You're in charge.
Let's see.
We're just here to dodge your questions.
That's what it feels like, isn't it?
Okay, so, well, I guess since Chuck brought it up, I found out while I was listening to the last Essence House, I got I guess I got a character named after me. I'm the beautiful young nurse.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So, how did you guys choose? How did you guys choose which character, or did the name come first, or did the character come first?
Well, I think that
I-
we definitely talked about having a character named Jess.
Yeah.
I don't remember that character being named anything else before, so I think we went right in naming that one Jessica.
Sweet.
So that character didn't have another name. We just kind of felt like there needed to be someone else, something else to sort of help the end of that scene kind of round out, and so it helped to show that time had passed by having Tristan familiar with someone.
Yes.
And so that's when Jess coming in, just it made some sense, and it really kind of, I felt like hopefully for the listeners it would kind of make them go, oh, so they're not just back in time, they've been back there for a bit now, like this is getting a little desperate. And so we got to add like some kind of familiarity, because now he's kind of making a friend and whatnot, and yet when you make friends, that also means that you're almost setting down roots, and that's a scary concept, especially when you're not in your own time period. So
yes, because we don't know. And thank you guys for naming the character after me. That's so fun.
we kind of like it.
I've never had a character named after me, so I find it amazing.
But also to Chuck's point, like if you're ducking back the time for like a day, there's a lot less that you can affect. So all of that, like, oh, we're just back in time. Like, what, the concert's not going to matter, things like that. But like when you spend weeks back in time, like that's a big deal.
Yeah, you can probably change a lot more, especially the longer you're there, and but also it's affecting them. Or Tim as well. Tim's getting headaches, and then that's why they're at the hospital.
Yeah, he's blacked out and
Yeah,
kind of
Tim's unresponsive, basically.
And Tristan's kind of like not sure what to do, because at a moment he says, well, I can't call Elise because she's like 15 at this time, and I can't call freaking Uncle Rick, or Dad, I guess it's his dad Rick, and because his dad's gonna be like, well, what the heck are you doing? Well, technically, Rick, if Rick knows about the time travel and he's like, hey, I'm Tristan from the future, it's probably a lot easier than being like, I'm a magical time traveler,
Probably not easy thing to bring up.
Probably not. So on this is from the Patreon website. Kieran says, I wonder if Tim is connected to the magic of the Essence House. The time travel didn't affect Tim as much as Tristan. Could it be that, I think it's reversed, right? Tristan as much as Tim. Could it be that Tristan can travel back in time but stay in the house, or he dies? Or is that why they got the note to return back to the Essence House?
I mean, that's a really interesting point. Now, just talking from like a theory standpoint, kind of stepping outside, Tristan has spent a lot more time in the house than Tim did. So did that affect him? Does that kind of sort of make it so that he's not as anchored and it's easier for him to move about? Whereas for Tim, it's more difficult. I think that's a really interesting theory.
Oh.
And then Wendy says about she thinks that hold on. She thinks that the note at the hospital was left by the guy who pushed the little girl.
Okay. Was there a name on the note? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. Shoot.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
We know who it is, but there's no
Oh,
name.
we know who it. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I didn't want to accidentally give something away, but I was like, did we put it? Because I know we've had notes with names, notes without names. There's been a fair amount of notes. There's been at least almost one note per episode.
That's funny.
Oh, Wendy just turned to me and she goes, "It was Rick." Now I'm going to make sure it wasn't Rick.
That's not going to be Rick, especially.
No, it's not.
It's like, it's not Rick.
Right. Can we put a hold on episode 5? I got to change some stuff around.
You have the guy record, not Rick. Not Rick.
It'll be great. It's like, and we find out in this episode that it is not Rick. And yeah,
Eric. The guy already recorded it.
Eric's voice partway through.
Okay, hold on. Oh, Wendy also says, not sure why, but it's interesting that Tim's memories are returning. I'm interested to find out what he remembers, as am I.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. Can we talk much to this, Eric?
I mean, I think that he, I think that the feeling that he has when he comes back to the 90s is familiar to him, because it's a special kind of sickness, it's not like your average, motion sickness or something. Although I think in my head when I was writing it, I kind of likened it more to motion sickness than anything else. But,
yeah.
Or some kind of motion sickness / vertigo. But I think that sort of thing is familiar to him. I don't think that he necessarily has very specific memories, although he does have memories of traveling with his grandfather, though when he was a kid, and he doesn't really attribute them so much to time travel, where they actually, for the most part, were. So I don't know that he has a plethora of memories of the past flooding him or anything, but just kind of familiarity.
That's kind of how I would imagine it too, is if you're back in a time period you're already in, it might almost become easier to remember some of the stuff that happened around that time.
Yeah, I think I described it as something like that too. He knows things that he shouldn't know, and so it's got some weirdness going on like that too. He's familiar with things that he doesn't feel like he should be familiar with. I don't remember how I described it in that part of the story, but unearned knowledge or something.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe you actually said that. Yeah.
So we did get a good comment from Suzanne. She said, you guys are killing it. Can't wait for more.
Us too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people feel like that.
And I do agree. I think that what we have going on is amazing. I'm loving it.
I think what's fun for the two of us is that we've said it before, how we're kind of building it is we built the season, we know where it's going, but it's a lot of these little building blocks, these little things in between that we don't necessarily discuss with one another. And so, I wasn't aware that even the hospital at the end, the stuff with Tim, I wasn't 100% sure aware of that. And so that was a cool surprise to me. And so it's kind of neat that we get to pass this baton back and forth, because then, the other guy gets to read it and go, oh, damn. Oh, that's so cool that you did that. Now I get to play with this. And so, because of what he did at the end with the hospital, that greatly affected. Because in my mind, the way I was playing with episode 5 is completely different than what I ended up writing it, and it had so much to do with that with that scene.
Yeah, and when we so we laid out the season, we left some wiggle room. So like we had plans for 10 episodes, but we didn't have 10 episodes pinpointed. We had maybe like 8.5, and we left some wiggle room. So when I was writing episode 4, it was intended to be start and finish like that adventure in 1994. But I got to a certain point where I was like, this part right here would make a great cliffhanger. I'm already the amount of words in that we want to be. So like this is already the 20-minute episode. It's at a good point. And so we talked about it, and we tweaked some things that I did and made things a little more interesting for where Chuck's picking up the baton. And so he's finishing up that adventure. And
it's exciting to like see where it goes and see how you guys take it in different directions, kind of, or actually not even different directions, just kind of like a similar direction, but in your own view.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that just also speaks to kind of the partnership that we have, where neither of us are ever like, I want you to do this or you have to do that. It's more just like, hey man, this is what I did, and this is kind of where we want to end up. Like, even when I was writing 5, Eric came to me and he said, hey, how exactly does 6 end? And I was like, oh, this how it ends. He's like, great, because I'm working on 6 and I got to make sure I have that. And so, you just have to make sure that they have just the right amount of knowledge to be able to do that. And then, of course, all the rest of those building blocks can be filled in, all that extra stuff. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun to make that happen and jump back and forth and, do half an episode here, whole episode there. It's great.
So is there anything you guys can share with us about episode 5?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Episode 5. For episode 5, Tristan finds himself in a really delicate position. He's in the past. He only has a certain amount of, finances and all that kind of stuff available to him. And what's he going to do? And he's kind of effectively friendless. So the only person really in his life at this point, the only people in his life are either the family that he, feels like it's going to be a burden to talk to them. Because of course, that gives away a whole other kettle of fish. Then you've got the cousin who's laid up in a coma. And then of course you have the nurse who is his new friend. So we get to play off a lot of really cool stuff. I had an awful lot of fun with episode 5. And honestly, I get to play with one of my favorite parts of the 90s. So I think you guys are going to have a blast.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Essence House After Show. I guess chapter 5 comes out next week?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday for
26th
for members, and then normal people will see it. Doesn't matter because you can't see this unless you're a member.
Yeah, normies.
Speaking of which, though, if you have any friends that are into this sort of thing, send them over. We definitely can use some more patrons to keep this going. And we've all of you are awesome. We're really grateful for everything that we've gotten.
We really do appreciate it. Keep sending in your questions. We love to talk about the show and anything. And even if there's other stuff that you want to ask us, behind the scenes stuff or whatever, we're always down. That's the fun thing about this. It really is for you guys. So whatever you guys want to do with it, we're open.
Yep. Yay, thank you.
Yay, thank you so much.